Hello and welcome to this tips video. My goal here is to highlight some of the less obvious things you can do in God of War combat. It's not meant to be an exhaustive video. There's plenty that I don't cover here. Forgive the shabby production values. I'm not a for real YouTuber. I'm recording and editing this on a PlayStation 5, and I'm using a PlayStation 5 headset to record the audio, and it shows. This thing is pretty shaggy, but hopefully you can get something from it anyway. Also, note about spoilers. I'm not going into story stuff here, but you're going to see moves and equipment and levels and enemies from other parts of the game. I try to keep most of the stuff from early in the game, but if you have not played the game and want to go in unspoiled and discover things for yourself, you should definitely not watch this video. So buyer beware here. Anyway, let's get into it. Tip 1. Use parries to set up attacks. So parries are super useful in God of War. They stagger enemies. Here you can see it not only staggers the one enemy that attacks you directly, but anyone that's close enough. So in this way, they can give you the time and space to set up longer attacks, slower attacks. Here you can see it. All three enemies on the right get staggered by that parry. Again, 1, 2, 3, all staggered by the same parry. Parries even give you enough time to do the Executioner's Cleave, as you can see here. This is super helpful. For example, when fighting two heavy Draugr, it's a good way of doing a bunch of damage to them in relative safety, because the Executioner's Cleave, when it lands on an enemy, if the axe sticks into the enemy, you're basically invulnerable until the end of the animation. I had to roll out of the way because he was attacking me. You don't want to be caught when the animation ends, but as long as you do that, you're pretty safe. Tip 2. Ring outs, pins, and stun grabs. So ring outs, knocking enemies out of the arena off a ledge or a cliff. Pins, where you pin them to certain walls, and stun grabs are all ways of sort of insta-killing enemies, although not all stun grabs kill. Anyway, without getting into it, I should say all the clips here in this video are from GMGOW difficulty, but these tips should apply to any difficulty, really. So here, this is really early on in the game, before Kratos has unlocked anything. And you can see how much sort of quicker you can get through these fights if you take advantage of these various insta-kill techniques. Now, you'll also notice I'm doing this mostly on smaller enemies. Basically, small enemies that are your level or below are more susceptible to these things. Here, instead of wall pinning, I'll just punch this guy in the back of the head. So you trip him with your axe, get behind him, and rabbit punch him. Punch him in the back of the head. Just start punching them and they stand up and get stunned super quickly. You can also see I'm using Atreus here to keep them down, help keep them down while I'm positioning myself to take advantage of them being prone. More on that later. Here's a ring out. Same idea as a wall pin, but easier. You just have to aim for the cliff. This is a pretty tough early fight on GMGOW mode, so the faster you can clear these guys out, the better. This guy is over my level, but that Executioner's Cleave which we'll talk about in a little bit, is a good way of knocking him down and setting him up for a stun grab. You can even use rage to ring out enemies. Here's a ring out on a Revenant. Much easier way of dealing with those enemies. And that's just a normal R2 rage attack. No special rage ability. Another ring out. Here you encounter a bunch of projectile dudes. These guys have a purple bar. This guy. Ordinarily you can't trip people that are over your level, but I think with projectile throwers sometimes you can. So here, set them up for some stun grabs. That move I did, I think it's called Grinding Storm or something like it. It's one of the early unlocks where you hold down R1 and do repeated hits. And if you get behind the guy, you can stun him super quickly. This is another Revenant Rage ring out. So you make Atreus, take away your shield, activate Rage, like so. Tip 3, using Atreus. So Atreus will auto-target enemies. If there's an enemy on screen and you hit square, he'll fire an arrow at that enemy. If there's more than one enemy on the screen, he'll focus on whichever is sort of the most conspicuous target on camera. So whichever one's closest to you, more in the center. Here I'm just running around, shifting his focus and hitting square, so just to demonstrate how he works. He's basically the Devil May Cry guns, the Ninja Gaiden throwing stars from the rebooted Ninja Gaiden. So yeah, I'm targeting this guy, targeting that guy, and you can use him to interrupt and stagger enemies. You can keep them suspended in the air or keep them on the ground if you've knocked them down, which I'm doing here. So you'll see me doing this throughout this video. The important thing is you don't need to hold the left trigger to use Atreus, despite the game's tutorial sort of suggesting otherwise. Number 4, Frost Rush. So Frost Rush is a move that you can unlock fairly early. This is what it looks like. It's a dashing R1 attack. And it's in the skill tree here, which I think is like, I don't know, level 2 axe upgrade, something like that. The reason Frost Rush is great, one of the great things about it is when you do it on a downed enemy, you bounce them off the ground and can immediately start juggling them, comboing them. So when you combine it with axe trips, and what we've talked about already, you can see its utility. I am not an amazing combo guy. If you want to see that sort of play, check out like, Game Breaker God. He's a YouTuber, or SMVR. Both of those guys are just amazing players, and any useful things from this video are probably poached from watching their play. I'm a mediocre player at best. I die all the time, but I'm hoping to help other mediocre players have more fun with the game. Anyway, check out Frost Rush. It's a lot of fun combined with tripping enemies. Five, Executioner's Cleave. So here is Draugr. We can't trip him. We can't use a normal launch on him. We can't ring him out under normal means because he's way over leveled. But you see here, Executioner's Cleave still puts him in the dirt. And then we can juggle him with Frost Rush per the last section. Here's another Executioner's Cleave. Guy's in the dirt. Oh, he got up in time, but weirdly lost his balance. maybe because he was right on the edge there. Setting up another Executioner's Cleave. Sometimes you have to use Atreus to keep them in place while you're doing it. This guy, there are no other enemies, so we can sort of take our time with him. But Executioner's Cleave is very useful against over-leveled enemies that ordinarily you can knock down or ring out, but you can't because they're over-leveled. You're going to face over-leveled enemies sometimes in this game, especially if you try GMGOW difficulty, in which enemies that have taken some damage, if you leave them alone for too long, they'll just sort of spontaneously level up one level. So you're almost always in fights against people that are at least one level above you. 6. Dodge after recalling the axe. So everyone loves Kratos' axe recall animation. It looks cool, it feels cool, but there's a problem, and that is that it slows him to a crawl. He can't sprint until the axe is back in his hands, and this makes doing things like tripping an enemy and then punishing them with Frost Rush sort of difficult. So there is a way around this, and that is to dodge right after recalling the axe, and this cancels the recall animation. The axe still comes back to you, but you're free to sprint. So you recall the axe, dodge forwards, and then sprint immediately. And you'll notice when I use Frost Rush, I'm always doing this. 7. Dodge offset. So Kratos has a couple canned 4-hit combos. They differ only in the final hit, whether you end with a light or heavy attack. Now, we want this final hit to land on the enemy. That's sort of the whole point of the combo. But against tougher enemies, this can be hard because they'll just shrug off. They don't have much hit reaction. They don't get staggered when Kratos hits them, especially on higher difficulty levels. So they'll do their own attacks while you're in the middle of this combo, and they'll interrupt you. Fortunately, there's a system in place called dodge offset. And what this basically is if you start up a combo, you can press the dodge button once to do a sidestep, not twice to do a roll, but if you do the sidestep dodge and then immediately start attacking again, you'll resume the combo where you left off. And you can even dodge in between every hit of the combo, and the final hit will still come out. Here you may be wondering why I keep turning away from the Draugr every time that big final hit lands. It's because that combo actually has a slow recovery animation, and you can cancel it by using Quick Turn. Number 8, sweet leaping iframes. So this attack is called Guardian's Fury. It's a stance change attack, meaning you do a normal attack, wait a beat, and Kratos changes his stance, and then you can follow up with this big leap. And as you can see here, he'll do it in whatever direction you spin the camera in, so you can change the direction of it. You find it in the shield combat section down at the bottom here, Guardian's Fury. And it can be especially handy when you combine it with another bare-fisted attack called Agile Strike, which I'm doing here. There's an Agile Strike, there's the Guardian's Fury, and then there's a follow-up to Guardian's Fury. And Agile Strike you can find up here at the top of the shield combat. Now, what's great about Guardian's Fury, and also the other stance change attack, in shield combat is you have iframes during the entire attack animation. So you can't really take damage except for a few really specialized enemy grabs that some bosses do. But by and large, you just shrug off any damage that would otherwise hit you. So here I'm just leaping through fireballs without taking any damage. It's a good move to know about, and it's sort of a nice option when you don't want to think too hard and maybe there's just a ton of enemies around or your health is low. You're not invulnerable during all these moves, just a leaping attack. But here you see this guy was trying to back off and regain some health, and because you go leaping forward, you just had no room to do so. There, I did it, another leap right through his swing. Here my health is really low, and these are poison Tetzel worms, this annoying spitting ones. And I think I just didn't want to think about it, so I just start spamming Agile Strike, Guardian's Fury, follow-up, Agile Strike, Guardian's Fury. And my health is just totally down because they did poison me. So if I take a single hit, I'm dead here. But it's also, because it's barehanded combat, it's helpful to stun enemies, knock them back into walls, lift them and start juggling them. It's a super powerful move. Those iframes are just incredible. The other stance change attack in Shield also has iframes, but you don't go leaping like you do with Guardian's Fury. They're both very powerful, but I like this one. You can see here it knocks a guy out and ignores the light bomb that those elves placed under my feet. And then one last clip here, I'm going to do it through this guy's unblockable attack. And you see it take no damage. Number 9, the Amulet of Kvasir. So the Amulet of Kvasir, or Kvasir, forgive my Norwegian/Icelandic, it's not very strong. This thing totally rules. It's by far, I think, it's my favorite amulet in the game. In standard game, in New Game Plus, it gets sort of replaced by other things. But what it does is it gives you Bayonetta witch time. As you can see in the description, on a close dodge, it slows down enemies. And this can make dealing with some of the tougher enemies a lot easier. So, for example, this Dark Elf Lord, he doesn't really have hit reactions for the most part. So it's hard to get a lot of licks in, but that all changes if you can slow him down. So if you haven't really checked out the Amulet of Kvasir, do so. Once you sort of figure out enemy attack timings, you can really kind of abuse this thing. And you can find it relatively early on. It's in Alfheim. Number 10, settings. So there are a few gameplay and camera settings that I would recommend. This is sort of back when Give Me God of War mode first was about to launch. I think the Santa Monica devs, the combat designers, put out a blog post recommended tweaking some of the settings, and so it's not just me. Basically, there are things that are on by default that are meant to sort of help beginner players, but that can kind of get in the way of some of the stuff we've talked about here. So first up, under gameplay, under lock on camera, I would set this to off. We want to retain control of the camera as much as possible, and this just sort of gets in the way of that. Next, under camera, I would turn off aim assist and turn off recenter camera on attack. Strafe assist, I usually leave on. You might like turning it off. Check it out and see. As I said, most of these tweaks are meant to give you more control over the camera. And also aiming. With the sticky aim, the aim assist on, it can be more difficult to target specific enemy body parts, heads and feet, or to aim behind one enemy at another enemy. Finally, you may also benefit from turning up the horizontal sensitivity a little bit. I usually have it at like 7 or 8, and I'm not like a fast twitch kind of guy. It takes a little while to get used to, but I think you'll really like it once you do. I should say that's for the free look camera. For the aiming camera, I just leave that at the default 5. All right, that will do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Thanks for putting up with the shabby production values. I hope that you find something here that helps make the game funner for you. I found personally, I played it initially and I was like, yeah, that was good. Although I kind of missed the old God of War mechanics, and then while later replayed it and then played through on Gimme God of War difficulty, and the more I struggled with it and sort of learned how it really worked, the more sort of interesting tactical decisions I found myself making, and the more fights became like fun little combat puzzles and less, my estimation for how clever the game design is went up the more I played it, and hopefully I help you sort of appreciate it more. Although I know not everybody has time to dive deep into games. Anyway, this fight here is, I think, I found it to be one of the hardest fights in the game on Gimme God of War difficulty. If you can make it through this fight, you can make it through the whole game. Anyway, thanks for watching, and bye for now.